Hey guys, I thought I'd make a quick video as I've been watching the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial. I've been watching like a hawk, but like massively procrastinating. I got so much stuff to do, but oh my god, it's so addictive. It's crazy. So yeah, today particularly and yesterday, I've been watching like so many bad takes that people are giving on it because they don't really understand what's going on within the relationship between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Now, I've did quite a bit of research into borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder, which are personality disorders that Amber Heard has. So I have quite a good insight into what's going on. I've researched this type of things for years, and obviously I've spent years learning psychology as well. So it is something that to me is personally fascinating. So I thought I would jump into it. Yeah, I've met a few people with these types of personality disorders as well. Now, obviously, I'm not going to name any names because one of the most important things that you can do when you encounter somebody with a personality disorder that makes them such a challenging person, the most important thing that you can do, stay away from them, have nothing to do with them, and generally don't mention them, forget about them. You don't want revenge or anything. You just want to stay away. The best revenge is to basically just to not have anything to do with these people and move on and be happy. That's basically that kills them. Actually, they hate that. And yeah, so yeah, no names, but I'll go into a little bit of detail. So the first time, obviously, I'm not going to go into too much detail though, because you don't want to awaken their monster. Yeah, but the first time I met somebody with a personality disorder, which I think is why, obviously, and this story is quite important because it explains why Johnny Depp wouldn't have been aware of Amber Heard having a personality disorder. But the first time I met somebody with a personality disorder, I was dating this person between 2006 and 2007. And we've been dating for a few months, and we'd said the L word to each other and stuff. And once we'd reached this point of being like really secure and happy and stuff, one day we were laying in bed. I'm just looking at the ceiling, not really thinking about much. My mind was pretty blank. And out of the blue, this person said to me, their exact words were, "You can't win. I'm smarter than you." Out of the blue. And I was like, "What was that?" And they were like, "You can't win. I'm smarter than you." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Oh, nothing." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Nothing." And I chose to just leave it because I was like, "What the hell? That's so weird." And I guess I chose to kind of ignore that. And then gradually, what would happen is, well, basically, that was them showing their true inner personality for the first time. And generally, with people with personality disorders like this, they tend to wait until they've got their hooks in and you're feeling like safe and happy and like in all those emotions and stuff. And then generally, these people generally tend to have abandonment issues as well. But because they know that they've got their claws in, they start to reveal their true nature. And it's generally not particularly nice. Now, most of the women that I've dated have been amazing, but I would say two of them have had personality disorders, definitely, yeah. And one was an absolute clone of Amber Heard, not this one that I'm speaking about just now. Anyway, so basically, I started to realize that things were really off. There was something not right with this person, but I didn't quite know what it was. And and the more we dated after that, the more they showed their true self. And generally, we're doing the kind of thing that Amber Heard was doing to Johnny Depp in the audio tapes. Basically, Amber Heard was saying that he's fat. She was saying that he was old and stuff to kind of try and ruin his self-esteem. Now, this person I was dating, she would make comments about the fact that she's from a wealthier family than me, and that kind of thing, and kind of like say that they were better than me, basically, because of they implied they were of a higher class than they actually were as well. I did see their home, and it's middle class pretty much, but they were trying to pretend they were far more grand and sophisticated and upper class than they really were, which was quite bizarre. And it's just a case of they're generally trying to kind of bring you down and beat you down and make you miserable. And in the audio recordings, actually, you can hear Johnny Depp say that basically He loved her and he just wanted to love her. And all she wanted to do was make him miserable. And as crazy as it sounds, that's actually right. People with these types of personality disorders, they do want to make their partners feel miserable. It makes them feel alive, which is quite disturbing, really. Yeah. So yeah, it's absolutely mad. So generally, people around Amber Heard won't know the full extent of basically what she's really like deep down. And I think one Twitter user said it best when they said that basically, I read somebody say that Amber Heard is like how she is because there wasn't enough souls to go around. And as savage as that is, it's kind of how it feels like when you're dating somebody like that. And the reason is generally what happens is when people with narcissistic personality disorder types, when they meet you, they take like a snapshot of you that they keep in their head, and they have like words around the snapshot, and that's who you are to them. And you generally, that's all you'll ever be to them is this snapshot with these words that they've chosen to describe you. And what it basically happens is they view everybody around them as like a two-dimensional figure, and that's all they are. Whereas they view themselves as being very deep and intelligent and brilliant, and everybody else is just these basic things around them that they can basically toy with. And it's quite bizarre because realistically, when you speak to them, when you try to tell them that they're being cruel or that they're being evil, it just lands on this brick wall. And even when you look at their eyes, you can see that they're not taking it in. They're intentionally not registering it. It's a very, very bizarre. It's very bizarre. And although they view everybody else as like a two-dimensional figure and themselves as being the multi-layered one, they generally are the one that is the two-dimensional figure. And although they tend to think they're brilliant and special, but the more people you meet with these similar personality disorders, the more you realize that their personality, their disorder is taking over most of their personality, and they're actual clones of each other, which is wild. And once you're trained and you can see it in them, and generally, if you meet people and they know you can see it, it's yeah, it makes them really, really, really angry that they can't pull the wool over your eyes. Yeah, because they generally tend to like people that are a bit naive, that are high in empathy and things like that. Kind of like Will Smith, his wife. I've seen many times she spoke about how she didn't want to marry Will, but she did anyway, and about how her and Tupac were really close. They used to date. He was from the street. He was cool. He was like a proper gangster, and Will Smith is just this posh kid who's basically like nowhere near as cool as them. So I mean, people can flip it around by being like, "Oh well, you're not as upper class as I am," or whatever, or you're not as poor as I am. It's generally there's clutching at anything to try and basically bring somebody down. Obviously, Will Smith stayed long enough to become the bad guy himself. But the dynamic in that relationship was that Will Smith told his partner very, very early on that he lived in a household where there was abuse. So he chose not to be abusive, and he wouldn't ever have any like violence or even raised voices, he apparently said to her, in his house, which then actually makes him a prime target for somebody that's basically wants to manipulate and control. But obviously, he stayed so long he became bitter himself, and he made like a bit of a fool of himself. Yeah, so Johnny Depp. So basically, what Johnny Depp never realized was from the get-go, he was there to have a loving relationship. But what was happening was he was playing a game, but he wasn't aware that he was playing. Because the person he was dating was playing a game with a goal to destroy him. And he never knew that this game was actually going on. So this person's being manipulative and scheming and conniving, and he's basically just trying to love them, and that's what he's getting back. And generally, yeah, he generally completely screwed up by not noticing these telltale signs and leaving once they started. But generally, what tends to happen is with these people is they pretend to be a victim from their exes so that you feel sympathy for them. They'll tell you stories of abuse so you feel sympathy for them. And then what they do is they'll then start to self-harm and basically so you won't leave as they have serious abandonment issues. And generally what they're trying to do is they're telling you only you can help them. And generally that's trying to basically make you trapped because of their abandonment issues. And yeah, it's completely insane. So generally, I think if Johnny Depp's legal team focused on the borderline personality disorder, they could have a slam dunk. Now, I did notice on Twitter there was a lot of people saying how you shouldn't try and win the case through the BPD. And generally, I could tell by their profiles these were people with borderline personality disorder themselves. So they were generally trying to be like, no, that's a horrible way to go about it. And they were talking about how see, people who have borderline personality disorder, a lot of them themselves were abused as children, and that's generally where it all stems from. And basically, people were trying to say, well, if you're abused as a child, or if you come from like a home that's super aggressive and stuff, you're more likely to be a victim of abuse as an adult, which is true. And they're trying to say that therefore that doesn't mean that Amber Heard would be the violent one because the abuse that would be associated with borderline personality disorder, the abuse as a child, would mean that she would be more likely to be the victim. But that's not actually true. Now, that is true with victims, yes, but it's not actually true with victims with borderline personality disorder. And basically, the reason is well, the symptoms of borderline personality disorder they can be so disturbing that generally the people are generally far more likely to be aggressive than your average person and other people who have been victims of child abuse. Yeah. So basically, so what are the symptoms? Yeah. So basically, fear of abandonment is a huge one, and if these people sense that they're going to be abandoned, that generally tends to lead to a lot of aggressive behavior. So it creates this kind of weird cycle where the worse they behave, the more they think they're going to get abandoned, because obviously you're not happy with them being abusive. And then obviously once you basically show that you're not happy, they become even worse behaved and generally become more abusive. And obviously then there's then things get thrown, threats of violence and so on, because they can see more and more and more that you're not happy and you potentially might leave. And so that generally does not work in Amber Heard's favor. And then on top of that, obviously there's mood instability, obviously, generally day to day. They're always in pain. People with borderline personality disorder, they're in pain constantly. But it's not really a pain with regards to things that they themselves have done to others. It's a pain with regards to basically how they feel within themselves about them and things that have happened to them. So there's not really much thought into what they've done to their partners. It's generally all about how they feel. And basically, not being happy with basically having to face the consequences of their actions, and generally not being happy with the world not thinking as brilliant as they generally themselves think they are, which is the narcissist in them, basically. And then obviously, one other huge symptom is outbursts of anger, which obviously, if Depp's team focus on this, they will slam dunk it. On top of that, there's feelings of emptiness, which is obviously another huge symptoms of borderline personality disorder as well. Another one is paranoia. Seriously, a lot of paranoia. It's not ideal, which then again leads to aggression as well. And also there's dissociative symptoms as well, which basically is largely linked to there being some sort of child abuse when they were younger, which generally, as I said earlier, it generally tends to be the cause for their borderline personality disorder. Yeah. So yeah, it's extremely complicated, but generally the best way for Depp's team to win. Another thing which is actually really quite sad actually is obviously there's suicide attempts. So they will have a lot of fake suicide attempts, but also, which is quite sad, is they're actually more likely to commit suicide than any other people as well, which is not ideal. So with Amber Heard having ruined her career, there is obviously going to be a cycle where obviously she's in constant pain, feeling empty, suicidal. There will be self-harm, obviously, generally impulsivity. But on top of that, yeah, a lot of people with borderline personality disorder do tend to commit suicide, which is obviously quite sad. So it's quite a tricky situation where Johnny Depp and his legal team could basically crucify Amber Heard and get justice for Johnny Depp, but the consequences could actually be really, really tragic, and that's quite sad. So yeah, but it's definitely been an interesting case. Yeah, it's crazy. But any questions? Feel free to ask us down below. I just fancied basically pointing out these things that are really important towards the case, since there's been so much PR from Heard's team that are generally kind of fake news, and I have noticed quite a few people are kind of buying into it. But statistically, we can definitely say that Amber Heard, due to her personality disorders, is far more likely to be the abuser by quite a long shot. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Like I said, any questions, ask down below. I'm gonna have to go do some work because I'm procrastinating here like crazy.